Obviously, there's been a lot going on in Washington
You think?
after President Trump.
Oh.
Yeah, right. Obviously, after President Trump was reelected, you've certainly been busy yourself as the chairman of the Senate HALT Committee. Walk me through kind of what you consider the highlights so far in 2025.
It is hard to say. I mean, first, the president got elected, and he got elected with a majority of the votes. That was a statement. The American people were sick of the inflation. They were sick of people pouring across the border, and they understand if people were pouring across the border illegally, probably fentanyl was too. The president gets in, he goes, boom, 25% tariff on Mexico unless you help us stop those caravans and that fentanyl. And lo and behold, the Mexican army is breaking up caravans and going after cartels. That is a huge highlight because we had to shut down illegal immigration and we had to address fentanyl. So now another highlight for me is that the Senate passed my HALT Fentanyl Act. And the HALT Fentanyl Act is one more tool law enforcement has in which they can say, you know, somebody comes across with some fentanyl, but it's just a little bit chemically different. Doesn't matter. It looks like it, addicts like it, kills like it's fentanyl, and you're busted. So giving law enforcement one more tool, for me, that was a highlight.
Absolutely. So let's kind of dive into education, if you will. So President Trump earlier in March signed an executive order that would dismantle the U.S. Department of Education. That's really giving power back, at least from Trump's executive order, to parents, students, and communities as well. We've seen Louisiana jump from all the way bottom of 50th to 32nd, according to the nation's report card, with some major strides in reading and math. With the leadership under Governor Jeff Landry and State Superintendent Kate Brumley, what does Louisiana's education future look like without the Department of Education on a federal level?
Well, the Department of Education, first, let's just say a couple of myths. People are going after this saying, well, you're going to cut federal funding for education. First, the federal government only puts up about 5 to 10% of all the dollars that come down for education. So for that 5 to 10% of the money, it probably puts up 85% or 90% of the regulations. And what states might want to do innovatively, how do we give the parent more power over where her child goes to school? How do we do a program that maybe can improve outcomes in a place which maybe the outcomes need improvement? That regulation will be cut, and will give more freedom to local school boards, to the state superintendent to make good things happen. I think this has been kind of brought about after COVID. Some schools stayed shut down long after it was announced they could reopen, and parents were being locked out of school board meetings. So I am about giving power to the parent. Let that parent, that mama, make the decision where her child can best learn.
Do you agree with President Trump's executive order to dismantle the Department of Education? Because I know you had mentioned about 5% or 10% of that federal money coming from that education department, but do you agree with President Trump dismantling?
There are some parts of that education that are nothing but a duplication of another department. And frankly, the other departments can do it better. The Department of Education has run a bad student loan program for like years, and they just keep on getting worse. Now, the Small Business Administration runs loan programs all the time and does it pretty well. President Trump's idea is, wait a second, if you can't do it, let's give it to somebody who can. Because really managing a loan program is not core to the Department of Education. Knowing who to give it to is core, but actually running the program is not core. Is that dismantling, or is that making government work more efficiently? I think it's better value for the taxpayer, which is both better service but less expensive.
So switching gears now, so in Congress, the House GOP adopted a framework for President Trump's big, beautiful bill, if you will, so the budget resolution this month, all going towards that for fiscal years 2026 through 2034. For Louisiana specifically, what will this do if this ends up getting passed out of both chambers and President Trump signs?
Well, what the hope is that by giving certainty in tax law and maybe some other incentives for business to expand and create better paying jobs, it'll mean for Louisiana what it means for everybody else, more better paying jobs. We want more jobs for the people of our country. We want more reason to work. Some people say, I don't want to work if I'm not going to earn any money. Well, a little bit of truth to that. Let's give better paying jobs so that people have a true incentive to work. Some people aren't going to work no matter what. We want the people who want to work to have an opportunity not only to have a better paying job, but to continue to have even better paying jobs. And so, by the way, that's what I'm trying to do in my health Education, Labor, and Pension Committee. But going back to the tax bill, let's create the incentives for those jobs to be created to make life better for the United States of America and the people that live here.
So obviously economic development for Louisiana, right? We saw Hyundai's going to build a steel plant here. Here in Alexandria, or really in Pineville, there's a $2-point-something billion plant that's going to be over here too, with Sungas Renewable Energy. Do you see this continuing with President Trump's budget in the future? Do you see that continuing even further?
I do. The United States economy is the most powerful economy in the world. We've got the workforce. We've got this big Mississippi River. If you want to take your goods out to the rest of the world, you can send it down the red to the Mississippi, and you can send it anywhere you want to. So we've got rule of law. We've got freedom for entrepreneurs to come up with new ideas. We've got the recipe right now that creates economic prosperity. I see us continuing to benefit.
Any concerns about the budget resolution as it stands right now?
Well, I do a little bit, in the sense that I'm a big deficit hawk. We need to live within our means, and so there's a commitment to cut as much as $2 trillion from government spending over 10 years. Turns out that's only $200 billion a year. And the federal government's in the trillions of dollars. We should be able to do that. We've got to live within our means. Having a debt is a tax on our future, and future investment, future prosperity. It is a tax on that. I think we need to balance our budget. By the way, the president thinks so too. He said as much in his address to Congress a few weeks ago.
Absolutely. Anything else that you want to add from at least the recent couple weeks in Washington?
There's just a lot going on. But I am committed to representing the great state of Louisiana and fighting for our state, making sure that the things that come out of Washington, to the degree they can, benefit Louisiana more than anybody else. It is my goal to make Louisiana the best place in our nation to live, and that's going to require a partnership between the federal, state, and local government, and I want to be the best partner possible.